agriculture and heavy industry. OK, let's get the thoughts now of Greens Senator David Shoebridge, who joins me live now. Mr Shoebridge, thanks for your time on the show this morning. An oil refinery up in flames in Victoria, more pressure on Australia's fuel security. How concerning is that to see?
Well, I think anyone who woke up and saw, a fire at one of our two oil refineries is obviously going to be anxious about it. We need some pretty clear and rapid clarity about what that means for domestic fuel supplies. But again, it just highlights how vulnerable our fossil fuel supply lines are and how vulnerable to disruption the fossil fuel industry is, and why we should have been, the last 2 decades rapidly investing in a far safer, far more distributed, sovereign, renewable energy system. But yeah, obviously it's concerning, and we need some fairly urgent clarity to the Australian public about what that means for domestic fuel supplies.
And Senator, you make an interesting point there, because obviously you've been beating the drum for the green agenda quite rightly as part of your portfolio. But in a time of crisis over traditional fuels, it doesn't feel to me like the green agenda has been pushed quite as much. We've had some reference to electric vehicles and maybe people being more interested in buying them, but we've not seen a wholesale kind of rethink about the future of Australia's energy and where it comes from.
Well, I think this is the federal government just sort of missing a key moment here. If you wanted to get the public on side with a national serious rollout of charging facilities for electric facilities, if you wanted to see critical and strategic investment on battery-powered freight, this is a moment for the federal government to do that. We've heard almost nothing from them. And in fact, there's threats from the federal government at this point, from the Labor government, that they're going to be cutting budget support for electric vehicles in the upcoming budget. I can't imagine a worse time to be doing that. Maybe they haven't got the memo, but I reckon if you tried to go to an electric car showroom and try and get yourself an electric vehicle in the next couple of months, good luck with that. We actually need the government to get on board, support with some public investment, support with some tax breaks, the urgent national rollout of the system that's going to electrify Australia. We want to be an electro state, not a petro state, and that's what this crisis is showing is urgent for national security.
Of course, we've got the alternative view this week from Nationals leader Matt Canavan that says we're not doing enough to continue to use Australia's natural resources.
Well, our best natural resources are our wind and our solar. We have the world's best renewable real estate, better than anywhere on the planet. We've got an entire continent to play with. These extraordinary natural resources, we need to urgently harness that. And what this refinery shows is that even when we have fossil fuel assets onshore, they are still incredibly vulnerable to disruption. This is the moment. This is the moment that the wake-up call that hopefully, many of the commentators on Sky News can finally get it, but definitely the federal Albanese government should get it, that this is the time for serious national investment to make us that electro state rather than a petro state.
And just talking about how the government's been responding to this crisis, they've got a lot of pressure from different directions. They're going to announce later on a massive increase to the defence budget and having to dip into the private sector to do it. Are you sympathetic to the competing needs of the federal budget, I should say, at a time when you've got, a war in the Middle East that we really couldn't necessarily see coming the way it came about, and yet dealing with this energy crisis too?
Well, we've got a war in the Middle East that is started by Australia's primary ally. That's the reality to it, and I suppose, to the extent you could have predicted it, the complete erratic, rogue-like nature of Donald Trump over the last 12 to 18 months was probably the best predictor. So, yes, this particularly rogue action of the United States was unpredictable, but what we have seen, we've had demonstrated clearly, is that continuing reliance on the United States for our defence and foreign affairs policy is incredibly dangerous. And what is the Albanese Labor government doing today? They're making an announcement that they're doubling down on AUKUS. They're doubling down on spending hundreds of billions of dollars over decades, enmeshing us further with the United States military. There's no revolutionary change in what we're getting from the Albanese Labor government in today's defence announcements. They are repackaging a bunch of existing spending in defence pensions and calling it defence budgets. They're bringing to account future expenditure that was already pre-programmed for the AUKUS nuclear submarines, and they're doubling down on making us interoperable, which means a small part of the US military. Now, who would be looking at the world right now and saying, do you know what? We want to double down on being part of the United States military. We want to double down on being interoperable. We want to buy more weapons systems from the United States. Only the Albanese Labor government. Well, actually, the Albanese Labor government, the Coalition and One Nation, they're all on that pathway, and it is incredibly dangerous for us at this moment. You would have thought they would have got the memo and said, actually, we need to be getting away from the United States, getting a sovereign foreign and defence policy, and not being, you know, a hostage to US weapons platforms and to whatever the whims of the US president is.
OK, Green Senator David Shoebridge, appreciate your time on Sky News this morning. Thank you.